Hi, Ian.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you see
Hi.
me? Hello.
I can hear you. I can see you. I can hear you. I can see you.
Wonderful.
And I am so glad you're here to talk to us. I'm just going to
Thank
pull up my
you.
many questions I had for you.
You have many questions. That's a good
I
start.
have many questions for you. You're not getting away easy.
Okay.
Sorry. Many questions for you.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, thank you. Where are you joining us from today? You're in New
So,
York?
yes, I'm joining you from New York. So I
Awesome.
must
Awesome.
start. I need to start the conversation by stating that, I stand in solidarity with my Black brothers, here in the United States. The theme of the conversation today is about like chaos, right? And so I think that like in New York, the
Yeah.
United States, just facing, once more publicly like the tyranny of Black people and the chaos that it's around. So, I believe that for me being here today and speaking with you, with a representative of Black excellence, is a sign of
Oh,
an
wow.
expression of resistance, today.
That
So
is high praise, honestly, Ms. Choko. That's high praise, and I definitely don't deserve it. But that was powerful, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing that. I think one thing I probably want to talk through with you is, one, coder societies and kind of
yeah,
what are you doing there and why, really?
yeah.
I think that's going to be one important part of the conversation. And then something else really about what needs to change about how we've designed cities over the last couple thousand years. Like what would you say the top three biggest things that need to change about how we design cities so that they can be more benevolent and productive? And how do we adapt from the chaos that cities have now become to what the future represents? So I think those are like the three broad things that I want us to talk about. So we'll start, I
Okay.
think we'll just start with the coder societies. So tell me, what is coder societies? Why does it exist?
So very good question, and there is like a very long like origin story that I'm not going to go into like today necessarily, but let's just say that we've been so we're based here in New York, and we've been helping like nations, countries, regions, and community rethink social economic structures. So we've been involved in helping to rethink national healthcare system in the UK. We've been helping some of your neighbors on the continent to rethink national public administration system. So rethink societies after colonization, reclaiming like the sovereignty, the intelligence, the talent, and the resources of like African nation in rethinking how to organize their country, right? We've been helping like the region of Chicago here in the US to rethink its regional like economic agenda and thinking about like how to ensure and to decrease like inequality among like citizens of the region, especially like this inequality being like race-based, and then again anchored in racism. We have been thinking along with the cities here in New York, and other like pluralist cities about the role of public spaces in pluralist society. How do you create public spaces where people coming from all over the world with different cultural background can evolve and feel safe and can exchange with one another? We're now working with one of your colleagues, I believe, or collaborator, Iyin, which I realized like very recently. We're working with the Africa Center, and we're developing their policy institute. We're working closely with Uzo Iweala.
Uzo?
And yes,
Yeah,
with
Uzo's
Uzo, who is
awesome.
like,
Yeah.
he is awesome. And Sokola Society is like partnering with him in creating like a global hub for like African and Black, Pan-African excellence in the area of tech, of finance, and of culture, and policies in general. So Coda societies, we believe that societies can, reinvent themselves, right? That structures and societies and demographic are evolving, and that there is a contract, for members of societies to evolve and to ensure that citizens and members are gaining the resources that they need to prosper. So we build for equity, and we build also with like well-being of like members of societies in mind. So, you know, we use different techniques. We've used like the design thinking process to do so. Some element, of course, of innovation in terms of process, but also like, you know, all the elements of society building, such as like architecture, urban planning, economic policies. The thing that differentiates us from others is that we do put, you know, like member society well-being at the center, and we are driven by a strict ethical compass, right? In terms of, then again, equity, safety, and ensuring that the most vulnerable population and community members are provided with the tool that they need to prosper. So that's a bit of like a background on Coda societies. If you may, I think that like I want again to like link emerging societies and emerging cities to the current like circumstances. You know, I think that like myself, like being a Pan-African Black woman who was born in France, which is like, you know, the West, I've derived a lot of inspiration, you know, from like emerging cities, because this is also where I'm from, and looking at emerging cities as a point of origin and a source of, and a point of safety and innovation. And to that, you know, to that extent, I also want to salute, you know, in terms of like, you know, the talking about Black excellence, and then again, the response of like African and emerging like cities, not only African, but throughout the world, like their response to COVID. I think that the West and like also like general media had painted like, you know, an apocalyptic picture for like how like African country or countries in the global South were going to be affected by COVID. And we showcased that, you know, that we were able to come up with extremely innovative like solutions. So I know that your neighbors in Senegal and in Dakar came up with like Doctor Care, which is like, you know, like these robots that provide care to residents. Like, you know, the fact that like Rwanda and Senegal like created like incredible digital platform, you know, for like public health and safety, and even like our brothers in Pakistan as well, who've been like hiring all the individuals who were like lost employment because of COVID, in planting like billions of trees. So all of these efforts are like, you know, are a testament of like innovation, creativity, and ability of emerging cities to respond adequately to chaos. So, you know, I wanted to like really point that out and like and honor that and celebrate that, and also like, yes, talk about the potential of emerging cities. I don't know that I have a response to like your question in terms of the 3 priorities. I think that, you know, it's more complex than that in terms of like developing cities. What I do know though, and you know, and I would love to see like if you agree or not, is like emerging cities have a very like incredible potential in terms of like leading the future of the world, you know, and setting the tone. And so yes, and for me, like the way in which I see that is like 3 distinct areas. And Iyin, like, yes, please feel free to like challenge or, you know, or nod if you know. But I think that emerging cities are already like emerging from chaos. They're emerging because, you know, they're emerging now because they've been preventing from emerging in the past, right? And their growth have been stunted by many different factors. So like the fact that they've been, you know, that they are emerging now showcase their resilience, right? In terms of like being able to keep on pushing and growing despite chaos. And one of the advantages that they have this experience in terms of like what doesn't work, right? So for example, if you look at Lagos, Nairobi, and different cities, even like, you know, throughout the global South, like Medellin, or cities in Chile, for example, they've seen and sadly like witnessed firsthand the limitation of, you know, Western policies, for example, in terms of like neoliberal policies, in terms of like, you know, unleashing capitalism for capitalism's sake, in terms of like creating structure that are like just about like over like production. So it's my phone, so I shall leave. And so like, how can emerging cities like learn from like lessons that they don't find, you know, helpful, and do not reproduce them, right? So I think that like this positioning is particularly like interesting and optimistic. So let's not reproduce what we know, you know, what we suffered from, and what we are
already know
seeing
it
is that
doesn't work.
it doesn't work,
Yeah.
and it's our duty and our ethical duty to like not reproduce that, right?
But do you
So
think that, you know, working with first principles design gets you there faster than, you know, perhaps imagining? I don't know if you get my point.
well, I think
Or
that
quote unquote learning from other quote unquote cities' mistakes. Because for example, like what would you say doesn't work about the way New York City is designed that a Lara city close to Lagos shouldn't copy?
That's like a very big question, and I think that like we should, you know, we can like talk about it for like hours. But I think that like for me, like the principle of design that I think that is very interesting is the idea that you can bring many different like perspectives to the table, understanding like what are the needs of the many, and you know, and then like designing like solution according to that. Right. I think that, for example, like the problem with American cities, for example, is that they've been designed and like the design have been calcified and been very rigid, you know, based on the need or the ideology of the certain population or certain group of the population, right? And these demographic have changed and has evolved, right? And so nowadays, this infrastructure, like for example, like the transportation system or urban or even like urban planning, are like solidified. They're very hard to shift, right? And they do not represent or adequately like respond to the need of a new demographic.
Yeah.
Now, like in the case of like the global south or like the cities on the continent, what we do know is that population are booming. What we do know is that we have a sense also of like what are the different like demographic trends, and we can forecast them adequately, you know. And see and design not for today necessarily, but also for like the future generation, right? You know better than me the numbers in terms of like population growth, right? But if we have the number, we know that like Lagos and like African cities are the ones that are like experiencing like will experience like the greatest like economic growth in the coming decades, in the coming decades. So what does that mean, and how can we ensure like
should experience the greater economic growth?
Exactly. And so
because based on COVID, you know, we don't know yet. But I hear you. I hear you about that. But one question I have before you continue is how do you like for example, I'm thinking of building a city. And I never want to have to call you to fix something, right? I love you, but I don't want to do that, right? So what should I do now to make sure I don't end up like any of the cities that you're having to fix?
Well, okay, to our defense is that we don't only come in to fix, we also come in to create from scratch. Okay, so like we also
that's true.
to, like,
okay, so I want you to come help me.
Yes, okay.
Fantastic. Because I'm terrified. I'm gonna have to call you guys and be like, hey, please come help me fix my city. I just
do
effed
not
it up really, really bad. And people are like kneeling on people's necks and killing. So I hope I never have to call you for that. But what I'm also saying is, what kind of structures do I have to put in place from the jump to make sure that I never need you to come back and fix it?
Yes, I think that it's more a series of principle, you know, than it's like, let's start with a series of principle as opposed to a series of like structure. I think that first of all, and maybe because I'm French, but I'm coming from the tradition of like social contract. So what are you building for, right? So like, what do you want like your citizen to benefit from? So you're building a city, but what do you want your city to stand for? What is it for, you know? What is a contract and the commitment that you are like creating along with the resident of that city? How do you know that your city is successful, right? What are you abiding to? What do you want your citizen to abide to? What is the vision for the collective future? That is like for me, in whatever context that I'm coming in, that being in the DRC, that being in Chicago, that being like even in the corporate setting, you know, what are the values and the social contract that we want to abide to, because this is going to guide the way in which we're going to design our infrastructures, that being education system, that being, like healthcare system, that being like financial system, or even like urban planning, right? What are we building for, and how do we know that we are providing citizens with the resources that they need to prosper? The second thing is that like we've learned that that societies are not static, right? That demographic evolve, that we have crises that happen. So how do we design resilient and fluid infrastructure? I think that we've done something. We've been thinking in the opposite way. We've been thinking that like individuals should be resilient, right? Because we use people of color, people in the global south, we use to like crisis. So we have to showcase resilience, right? What I think we should think about is like, how do we create resilient structures so we do not have to be resilient anymore, so we can just be safe, right? So like for me, the design prompt within like developing urban planning strategies, financial strategies, is like, how do we design, how do we create infrastructure that are going to be able to adapt, right, to whatever crisis is thrown at us? That being like, for example, like a transportation system that is modular, right? Maybe we need a road that goes from point A for point B. How can we like very quickly, using sustainable material, expand it to touch a different part of like, of a city? I can give, I can give you an example of that I've seen in Medellin in Colombia, for example, that was like fascinating, in which like they were able in like a couple of months to just create this escalator, a public escalator, to like for individuals who were low income and who lived in the mountains, like in the hills, to connect to like the center of the city. So in a couple of months, they were just able to develop like an electric, escalator that was low cost, that was very fluid, and that had like incredible impact on the economy of the region, and like lessen, like like decrease like violence, decrease inequality like significantly. So it's this mindset. So I don't, so it's a shift in mindset as opposed to like like building infrastructure like in that specific way. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I'll be looking for your help on doing that.
Awesome. I'm glad that now you do want my help.
Yeah, I do want your help now, so I don't make the mistakes and you don't have to fix anything. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I mean, one thing I did want us to touch on just from my notes here, but you've covered a lot of it actually, is really what you think, or how you think, we can evolve the current chaos in cities into something that is more, would I say, in line with some of the principles that you're espousing. So take New York, right? New York will need to be rebuilt after all the damage of last night. What's the first step? What should who's the mayor again? Blasio? What should Blasio do? Yeah, on it's not Monday, right? Well, let's just say Monday morning, just because it's easier for people to understand. On Monday morning, what should he do to fix New York, but not take it back to where it's coming from?
Yeah, but I don't think, I hear you, but I don't think that there's a priority now is in New York specifically is to fix it, in terms of like its physical look. I think that the question in New York is about ensuring the safety of its citizen and of all citizens. So the conversation should be about like, how do we create protective services for like Black people, who are like risking their life every time that they step outside. So how do we create like structures or solution or projects, that are ensuring the safety of residents? It's not about like, how are we rebuilding the city? New York like is rebuilt every day, in terms of like urban planning, in terms of like new businesses that emerge, in terms of like we know about like, gentrification, an example of like New York, like growing and transforming all the time. So for me, the issue in New York is not about like ensuring that the physical space is like, like fixed, or it's more so about like well-being. It's more so about, yes, how do you ensure that brown people are not the ones suffering, from COVID? They're not the one like losing employment right away. That that it is a safe space for like Black people, because that's what we're talking about today and we should be talking about every day. For Black people to just like be able to be in the city feeling safety. And that is also like, a topic for like emerging cities. We know more than anyone else how unsafe, cities in the global south have been made to be by design. And so ensuring citizen safety and creating infrastructure to like ensure this safety, for me, is a priority. So I would tell like Mayor de Blasio to like bring, like think and bring different voices in like ensuring that Black people are safe. That will be like my priority on Monday morning. It's not about nothing else.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that answer quite a lot. Yeah. Okay, you have questions for me? Because I'm out of questions for you. I wouldn't lie, except you say something intelligent again, and then something pops up. But
No,
I don't know if you have
so
questions
many...
for me, because we have to keep going until biology can make it here. Okay, we can make the transition. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. We might not need to ask me any questions, which is awesome.
I will ask them to you. I will ask them to you offline. But thank you for...
You ask them to me offline. Fantastic. Great. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, it's such a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes, likewise.
Well, I'm going to head out now. And then